Welcome. My name is Arnold F. James Jr. I am from the U.S. Virgin Islands, and this is about being an island man in the snow. Growing up in the Virgin Islands, my perspective of people from the United States was they were usually culturally ignorant, culturally unaware, and just downright oblivious to the world around them. We used to have a saying back in the U.S. Virgin Islands: don't be a tourist, be a visitor. Visitors are welcome, tourists are not. Upon coming to the United States, I first went to school at a military junior college in Boonville, Missouri. When I got there, my perspective on Americans, especially European Americans, had not changed. They hadn't done anything to prove me wrong. I worked at a Hardee's in Boonville while going to school, and it got around town that there was this young man with this island accent working at Hardee's. So a group of high school girls walked in one Friday night and demanded that I speak to them in my accent. Now, growing up in the Virgin Islands, we learned to speak three different kinds of English. There is the English of my accent, what we call, and then there is proper English. And then we also learn to speak, for the most part, without our accent, just because from back home, we speak rather quickly. And if you're not used to it, you won't get it. So I was positively annoyed at the tone that these young ladies came at me with. They came at me with like this was a zoo and I was the young ape that they were trying to get to perform for them. I let them know in no uncertain terms do I speak on command, and that's just disrespectful. The other thing that bothered me about people from the United States was how geographically ignorant they were when it comes to the Caribbean, the size of the Caribbean, and locations of the islands in the Caribbean. I am not Jamaican, has never been Jamaican, will not be Jamaican. And most Americans don't understand until I put it in the context of, let's say you're a Texan, and I walk up to you and say, hey, are you from New York? Yeah, you're gonna get a little upset. So coming from where I come from, each island has its own culture. Each island has its own language or dialect, depending on whether the island was owned by the French, the English, Americans, the Danish. Like the United States Virgin Islands were originally Danish possessions. So I'm very proud of where I come from. The Jamaica's claim to fame is that Jamaica branded itself as the Caribbean. So when you think of the Caribbean, you think of Jamaica. Not all of us is from Jamaica. Jamaica is actually at the other end of the Greater Antilles from me. I am in my islands begin the Lesser Antilles, or that portion of the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean. So it became very apparent that I would forever be teaching people about my culture. When I moved to Minnesota, it got worse. Minnesotans have no concept or idea of geography, of location, of any of that. And my accent just, when used, would inflame the situation. But then it dawned on me, hey, this is a problem that you can solve. Instead of being irritated with them, teach. So I started teaching. And I started showing and explaining the cultural differences between the Caribbean and Minnesota. One, for example, in Minnesota, when somebody asks you how you are doing, the answer they are expecting is everything is all right, all is well. They really don't want to know your problems. Where I come from, if somebody asks you how you are doing and you have gout, you tell them I'm being treated for gout. Minnesotans are very surface when it comes to interactions like that. Where in my culture, we're very deep in a sense that we really want to know how you're doing. Minnesota nice from a cultural perspective, from an island perspective, is passive aggressive behavior. Other things I learned about Minnesota, the women in Minnesota don't get compliments. Where I come from, we compliment our women constantly. In Minnesota, the gun gets complimented, the truck gets complimented, the deer he just shot gets complimented, the boat that he goes fishing in gets complimented, his wife doesn't. It caused me problems because Minnesota women thought I was coming on to them, where I was doing what my mom taught me, to be congenial, to be friendly, to be unapologetically nice. That's not to say that everything I learned in Minnesota culturally has been bad. Minnesotans are very helpful people. They are very engaged in the things that they believe in. And it's been my honor to live in Minnesota for almost 24 years. But as an island man in the snow, I've learned to be an ambassador, not just for African American culture or island culture, but culture in general. So that has been my story as an island man in the snow. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.